I'm going to start with the questions that I asked you guys on YouTube prior to the live stream. So it was like, what is your biggest concern? And you guys brought you all responded to the the questions, rather, the survey. Some of you all actually said all of them, but for the majority, 67% of you all wanted to know how to deal with harmful or unknown ancestors, and that's a very, very common concern that I get quite often as I help people to navigate through the ancestral awakening process. So we're definitely going to deal with that in the live stream today. We also had 21% of you all who wanted to know how to get started with Ancestor Veneration. We'll definitely talk about that specific to E5 because it is different than in the diaspora. And I'm going to cover that a little bit, not going too deep into the the diaspora practices because this is about E5 specifically. 8% of you all wanted to know how or what offerings to give, rather. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit as well because this is EFI based. I'm going to tell you like what that looks like, right, in the EFI tradition, because it's a little bit different than what we do. Well, it's a lot different than what we do in the diaspora for the most part. 4% wanted to know whether their ancestors will accept them. And I'm going to address that right now. Yes, your ancestors will accept you no matter what you've done, no matter what you've gone through. Once you start to make that connection, your ancestors will be there for you. They are more than willing. They want to guide you. And so they are just waiting with open arms. So don't feel like you've done anything that deserves you, well, rather that makes you undeserving of your ancestors' support and protection where they are right now in the astral realm, or even where you are right now in your journey. So greetings all of you who are showing up. Hidden Beauty, thank you. Yolanda, you said the timing is amazing. I was just talking about venerating my elders with my father. Thank you for sharing this today. You are so welcome, my dear. And you said you're greeting me. Thank you. Greeting sound goes. So let's go ahead and look at some of the foundations of ancestor veneration. So I'm going to get some basics in for people who know nothing about ancestor veneration, and then we're going to get to the specifics of what it looks like in the Ifa tradition. So in Ifa, in pretty much any African-based tradition, really, this is a sacred act of basically respecting those who came before us. It is a way for us to show honor to our departed bloodline, to remember those spirits, and to uplift them so that they can likewise uplift us. It's a reciprocal relationship. It is not worship, as many people often refer to. I should say Europeans, right? That's how it has been built, like we're worshiping our ancestors. And that is not the case at all. Instead, we are honoring those who came before us in various ways, in our own ways, because pretty much every nation on earth absolutely venerates their ancestors in some regards. It's just that ours is demonized for so many different reasons, but I'm not going to get into that. In today's message, we're focused more so on how we do it, why we do it, things like that. So ancestor veneration, that involves ritual offerings, prayers, communication to honor our departed loved ones. It's very much so akin to you continuing that relationship. Obviously, you're not going to do some of the physical things, like you're not going places with your ancestors and things like that. But you will continue those conversations. You will continue to integrate them, their wisdom, their knowledge base into your day-to-day life, because it's going to serve you in so many different ways. And greetings all who are coming online on both platforms. I see you guys on IG greeting me, and I want to return the salutations real quickly. So our ancestors, they're that intermediary. Okay, the ancestors help us out with other spiritual forces. They help us out on their own, even so. Right? They give us guidance. They still give us that wisdom and guidance, that those nudgings, that different information that you just pick up when you are in your day-to-day life. A lot of that communication, not all of it necessarily, but a lot of it is actually coming from your ancestral forces, even when you're not in a space of actively venerating your ancestors, because many of us don't know. But the difference is when you do know, right? And even when you don't know, some of that support is being withheld. There are going to be some blockages, especially for the ancestors or the departed loved ones. I won't call them ancestors because they're not, but the departed loved ones who are not in an elevated space, they are suffering. All right. And because they're suffering, they can't give you the same support that you need in your life. Think about it this way. In your day-to-day life, you have relatives. If all of you are in a state of, like, let's say poverty, financial poverty, you can't go to each other and ask for help, right? You can't go to your mom if she's broke and you need money, because she's not going to be able to give it to you, at least probably not what you need in that particular moment if you're trying to resolve something in an emergency state. However, if she is uplifted, if she does have the financial resources and you're short on the financial resources, you can go to her and you guys have a good relationship. That's another part of the dynamic as well. You guys already have a good connection and a relationship. You can likely go to her, get the money, and return it. She knows that you're going to return it. You're good for what you say you're going to do. That type of dynamic. The same type of reciprocity is going to go on with our ancestors. So we're not going to use them like a genie in the bottle and just run to the ancestors anytime we need something. And again, if you're not helping them to stay uplifted and elevated, they're not in a good space to even help you out, right? And definitely they know the difference when you just run to them when you want something and you're not maintaining that connection. So they're looking at it like, well, you're not good for this activity, right? You're not going to reciprocate and keep us uplifted. So why should we continuously hold you up beyond what we have to do, right? And so, you can even look at that as the parental relationship like we have here on the earth. Your parents, as you are a child, decent parents, I'll say it that way, they're going to do the minimum to take care of you. But if you're probably a bad child or something like that, always getting into trouble, always causing them problems, giving them a headache or what have you, they are probably not going to go all out for you. They're going to do what they have to do to make sure that you're maintained, you're fed, you have your education, so forth and so on. But they're probably not going to give you those extra little gifts because you're always causing problems. And they feel like that is not going to benefit you if you are constantly getting things. So long explanation, but that's kind of how the dynamics work. All right. Keep in mind who the ancestors are. Our ancestors are those who lived a good life, because this is what I said earlier. Your ancestors are not just any and everybody who passed away in your bloodline. These are the individuals who walk with integrity, usually live to a ripe old age, and they created a legacy. All right. And a legacy usually definitely that will come through biological children, but it doesn't always have to. I've talked about this in a previous live stream, so I'm not going to get too in depth with it here. But they should have taken care of someone and raised them up into, manhood or womanhood or something like that. And ideally, yes, it should be biological, but if not, it could definitely be like through a surrogacy type of situation. Now, some of you all asked about reincarnation. I kind of combined some of the questions that you had into one because they came, basically, they were the same question. They just were presented in different words. So, ancestral reincarnation. This is definitely something that the Ifa tradition teaches, is that our ancestors are coming around. The ancestors are returning. Every time a child is born in a family bloodline, that is an ancestor who is returning to have an experience or a journey on this earth. So when it comes to this notion, the Yoruba believe that anybody can basically reincarnate, and there is no doctrine or teaching or what have you that says who is going to return, when, why, where, etc. It's just that we're constantly going back and forth based on whatever we need to accomplish or achieve in this experience. Are all of this is another question you guys ask? Are all of the ancestors positive spirits, or could some of them be vengeful spirits? So, as I said before, ancestral spirits are absolutely going to be positive. They're going to be those benevolent spirits who mean for nothing but our good, and they want to help us. It doesn't mean that we're always going to get our way and get what we need, or get what we want, rather. They're going to instead give us what we need. So again, akin to a relationship dynamic that you would have right here on earth with your parents or parental figures. They know better than to just give you everything, because it's not going to help you out. But we do have others, spiritual forces that from our bloodline that transition, and are people that transition rather, and now they are in the spiritual realm. However, they're not in what we call the ancestral realm, so they're not considered to be ancestors. Okay, individuals who don't become ancestors still require healing, elevation, reconciliation, things like that, so that they can help you out, so that they can become those benevolent forces that you can lean on throughout your earthly journey. That being said, these particular forces are not necessarily vengeful. They're not really considered vengeful. They're just lost. Usually they can't do much for you at all. They're not like harming you, so to speak. It's just that they can't help you. That's the way it's seen in the Ifa tradition. Greetings, Reniverse. Thank you for coming. Orisha, Boomy X, thank you. Likewise. Alafia, greetings, everyone, and greetings, everybody who is showing up on IG as well. So, yes, getting back to what I was saying too, these forces are not like out to harm you or anything like that. They really can't do much because they're in a downgraded space, right? So, I mean, you could think of them maybe sort of like a homeless person or what have you, to kind of capture the essence. It's just like an individual in that position. They can't really do much, and that's kind of where these people are. They're homeless, so to speak, because they are not able to get to where they really need to be in a good space so that they can continue to contribute to the bloodline in a healthy way. Ancestor spirits, though, they absolutely can disturb your peace on this earth if you neglect them or if you dishonor them. But this is not revenge, or this is not to harm you. Instead, it's done to get your attention, right? So that we need to repair this. We need to connect this bloodline, and we need to be okay so that, again, we can continue to reciprocate the help from one another. You can elevate them on this side through your remembrance, through your prayers, through rituals to help you to connect closer with them and to also help them to elevate. And I'm going to get into both of those dynamics in a little bit. But this is what you are going to do in order to help your bloodline. This is something that we are so missing in the African diaspora because we've been separated. And this is why a lot of us are actually suffering, guys, in this realm, in this experience right now, because we're disconnected. As I said before, every other group of people on the earth actually has those ancestral connections and ancestral practices at some level. Many indigenous or traditional people groups do very much so what we do in the tradition as well. They do the sacrifices and offerings and things like that. Even so, Europeans, they just don't do it publicly, but they definitely remember their ancestral lineage and their legacy and things like that in so many different ways. So, we need to get back to that practice as well, and we can help our bloodline out in so many ways, the living and those who have departed from us. Cremation. This was another question that I got. If a family member has been cremated, how does that affect them in the spiritual realm? So it's important to know that cremation is not a thing in Yoruba culture or society historically. I don't even think it really has traveled there at this point, right? However, regardless of whether you do cremate or not, even if you're in the diaspora and it's something that you're thinking about doing or that has been done in the past with some of your family members, because I'm sure it has throughout time at some point, the spirit remains intact. The spirit is the spirit. So that's the body that's being burned. And I know there are some teachings out there that, say, something negative is going to happen or your ancestors can't be restored or what have you if the body is burned. And that's not true, because at the end of the day, a cremation can happen both intentionally and inadvertently. So think about it, for instance, somebody who is in a fire and they burn up, right? It might not be burned completely. Their body may not be burned completely to ashes in the same way as if it were in an incinerator, because a lot of times if it was a fire, then that's going to be put out hopefully within fairly quickly, but it's not always the case. So it's not ideal. It's not part of Yoruba culture. We want to return them back to the ground. That's the way that we've done it historically, traditionally. In Black communities, period, like cremation is just not really a thing in African culture holistically. But the person is still, they still have access to go to the ancestral realm, depending on how they live their life. But it's not about whether their body was burned or not, okay? In both cases, regardless, they can benefit from ancestral elevation. And I strongly recommend that we do this period for our lineage. This is something that is just naturally a part of the Yoruba culture, even prior to the times that we live in now. So it's not like we should only be doing this because of the condition that we're in, but we should definitely be doing it more because of the condition that we're in, because our ancestors definitely need to be elevated, okay? Also, with cremation, if it's like an unintentional situation where somebody dies through being burned up, that's a violent type of death, a very disruptive form of transitioning, in which case you definitely want to do some type of elevation work, because that signals that that person is probably not in the best place, because that's another aspect of becoming an ancestor. A person should have died from like maybe natural causes, or if it's a violent death, like maybe through them like serving in the military or defending somebody's honor or something like that, something noble, something honorable, but not like just through random gun violence or something like that, that signifies that there was something going on in that person's life to where they were not properly protected, right? And so we need to make sure we are helping them to get to their next level when they transition. So another question was, do the ancestors continue to grow and evolve even after they transition? And the answer is definitely yes, right? They retain their consciousness. The spirit is already there with them. It continues to be with them even after they transition, right? So they continue their ascension process because they still got things to do in the realm that they're in, and they could definitely will likely come back to the earth to reincarnate, but they still have lessons to do and things to do in the realm that they are currently in. All right. They continue to observe us. They continue to influence our lives, as I said before. All right. So that's why we want to take care of. We want to maintain those connections with them. They don't control your life. That they're not going to tell you you have to do this or you have to do that. They will absolutely try to guide you to the best route to take, but you have free will. The decision is yours. All right. And, obviously it's best to listen to them when they're trying to provide you with wisdom. But again, it's up to you. Johnny, you are saying my grandmother that raised me committed suicide. What would be your guidance and opinion on how to contact and help her? Absolutely. So great question. Thank you for this question. I would say definitely she needs to be elevated, and I'm gonna get to that in more depth. But through the Ifa tradition, this is a high level ritual that is performed to give sacrifices and offerings on her behalf or any ancestor's behalf. And there are other things that go on with it, so it's not just like the regular offerings and things like that that we normally do when we give Evo, but it's definitely a higher level ritual, and I recommend that for anybody who has been in that type of situation, committing suicide, any type of violent death, any type of abnormal death, like maybe even so like an animal or something like that attack, just anything where they're not transitioning in a peaceful space. All right, we still do rites and rituals in E5, period. Like you want to do certain rites and rituals when a person transitions, and I'll get into that in a little bit as well. But that's a little bit different than the elevation ritual itself. I hope I answered your question there. Honoring ancestors involves that reverence, that gratitude, that care, those rituals, offerings, remembrance, etc. So this is something that we're going to do continuously, not just one time. It acknowledges their role in shaping who we are in our destiny and helping us to move forward. Okay, in Ifa, the ancestors, we don't worship them as gods, all right? Like they always want to say, they worship their ancestors or what have you. We do not worship our ancestors. We respect, we revere our ancestors. It's very akin to, it is the same thing, really. When you look at somebody who honors their elders here in the earth, you treat them with respect. You give them their due process for the wisdom that they have, for the age that they have, and you're not going to say and do certain things in front of your elders in the same way that you would in front of other people. You probably shouldn't do it even in front of other people, but either way, we respect our ancestors. That's what we are doing. We are not worshiping them. With that being said, I'm going to then talk a little bit about, really comparisons and contrasts when it comes to Egun, Egungun, and the Orishas, because these are common terms that we use to refer to the spiritual forces that we work with. So Egun is something that you are going to hear quite often when you get into tradition. This is the collective spirits of your deceased bloodline, right? So that's ancestors. When we say ancestors in English, Egun in the Yoruba language basically means the same thing. We're talking about our deceased bloodlines who have lived righteous or impactful lives. All right. Egun is considered to be a type of Orisha, though. So Orishas, which I'll get to in more depth shortly, these are elemental forces. Egungun are absolutely classified as part of the Orishas. And a lot of people don't oftentimes understand that connection, and I'll get to why it's like that in a few. They obviously Egun did exist in human form because these are our ancestors, those from our bloodline. They lived, they died, they transitioned to the ancestral realm. Orisha are universal divine forces of nature. All right, they were created to govern specific elements, specific concepts, even so, right? And they function universally within the cosmos. So they go and they help out anybody. Some Orishas definitely are said to have lived on the earth as part of the Yoruba folklore and mythology and things like that. So there are numerous narratives about the Orishas having lived. And even so, some of the Orishas obviously haven't been like having direct bloodlines and lineages if they did live, right? But they're not the same as your direct bloodline, your Egun. Because your Egun, you know that you're directly connected to these specific spiritual forces. You may not know all of them, you won't know all of them. Nobody knows all of their Egun, but you do know that you came through someone into this earth. All right. excuse me, guys. Our ancestors, like I said, they're tied to our bloodline. The Orishas operate as universal principles. So the Orishas help out anybody. Our ancestors help us out directly, those from our lineage. And also, let me say this part, because a lot of times people start saying ancestors and they're thinking about everybody in their bloodline. Well, definitely those individuals are part of your family, but all of them aren't like considered your ancestral lineage. Your ancestral lineage is going to be from your mother and father, both of their mothers and fathers, their mothers and fathers, and so forth and so on. It's not like everybody like the cousins and the aunts and the nieces and all of this type of thing, as far as your direct bloodline is concerned. So do keep that in mind as well, even though they are highly correlated, and you can definitely honor other members of your family, especially those who had a strong or impactful role in your upbringing, and they helped you out a lot. You should honor them, right? I'm not saying not to, but those are not considered your direct bloodline or your ancestors in the same way. Ekelia, you're asking, how do we reach out to the healed ancestors that are most likely far away in time while showing honor and respect to our more recent ancestors? So, good question, and I'm going to get to that. But when it comes to showing respect in the Ifa tradition, we show respect to Egun or Egungun. It's all part of the same lineage. When you do certain ritual work, you can absolutely speak specifically to or do that work specifically unto individuals from your bloodline if you want to do it that way. And you should when somebody first transitions, and I'm going to get to that too. So you're going to do rites and rituals for that individual when they transition. But in general, you want to, I'm going to say, yeah, in general, for like the average person that's kind of into the tradition, they're just doing offerings unto Egungun, unless Egungun being that collective group of ancestral forces, unless a specific ancestor comes to you and shows you that they need work done unto them, because that happens to me quite often. I'll get specific ones to come and show me they need some type of elevation. And usually that is going to actually be people that are not from my direct bloodline, because I take care of my Egun, my bloodline. But I oftentimes get like aunts, uncles, and like cousins and things like that that will come to me and basically ask me to help them with their work. And I'll explain to you how that happens, right? I'm not speaking on some kind of wookie woo stuff when I say that, but I'll get to that part too. Egungun also refer to both that collective ancestral force and the masquerade. So oftentimes when you hear somebody say Egungun, we're talking about the masquerade that you see at the festivals, okay? So you'll see those masqueraders embodying the spirit of the ancestors. You'll see the movements, and it's actually the ancestors coming back through, and they're going to be dancing, and they're going to be talking to people, divining, telling different family members what's going on, what you need to be doing, what's going on, things like that, and also blessing the community, so forth and so on. So when you hear Egungun, most of the time it's like the masquerade during the festival period. All right. That masquerade, this is a communal ceremony that it goes within your bloodline. So each family line will have their own Egungun festival, if you will. But some bloodlines will have like major Egungun festivals, especially if they are closely connected to the Egungun that they may be governing that particular lineage or something like that to a high level. And so you can absolutely go to other people's Egungun celebrations. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But that celebration is usually going to be focused more so on that one family, because Egungun are familiar forces versus the universal forces, as I said before. All right. Personal ancestor veneration is usually going to be focused in the bloodline. This is something that you may be doing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, or what have you, or even so with your family, but it's not like these really huge, elaborate festivals like you see during the Egungun parades and things of that nature. Okay. Both of these expressions maintain that link between the living, the ancestral world. They are vital parts of the Ifa tradition, and that's the way that they are carried out. Now, let's get into some specifics of what it looks like to venerate the ancestors according to Ifa. First of all, initiation is not required. I often get this question about things that go on in the tradition. A lot of stuff you can do in the tradition without being initiated. There are some things that are specific to initiation, but you'll be told that before interacting with it. All right. You can absolutely initiate, though. You can initiate unto Egungun, unto your ancestors. And I'm specifically talking about Isheshe here because initiation rites and ceremonies are done differently than what we see in the Lukumi, the Santeria, because those traditions, when somebody goes to initiate, they get a whole lot of icons and things like that at one time. I don't want to speak too much on it because I only know about the peripheral of those traditions. But in Isheshe, you can initiate to Egungun, which will be a separate ceremony than initiating unto Ifa or any other Orisha for that matter. Okay. Everybody doesn't have to, everybody doesn't initiate unto Egungun, but sometimes they will, especially if Egungun is your head Orisha. So that can actually be, your Egungun can actually be your head Orisha. In that case, it may be very important for you to initiate unto them. But again, you don't have to in order to honor them at all, okay? Initiation just basically deepens your practice. It can unlock some deeper level blessings, knowledge, wisdom, understanding for you, etc. Now, how do you properly do an ancestor altar Ifa style? This is one question that I received. So in the tradition, all right, the ancestors are going to receive sacrifices and offerings through a consecrated or blessed icon or pot in the tradition. This is not going to be something that you just go and set up on your own. All right. This pot has to be consecrated with blood, with some kind of animal sacrifice or what have you, and specific materials that are used to consecrate that element. And then you receive that. You can put it in your home, you can put it in a temple or what have you, and you work with it through that device. You're usually, unless you're initiated, you're not going to give it sacrifices yourself. So you'll let your owl do that part, but you can absolutely give offerings to it. Now, with the Egungun in Yoruba culture, it's going to actually take some cooked dishes from Yoruba land. So you do want to be mindful of that if you want to get that with you, if you want to maintain like an Egungun icon or a pot in your home or what have you, those are Yoruba dishes. And obviously you can cook it, but you're going to have to learn how to prepare those dishes on your own. It is not the same as like maybe maintaining the hand of Ifa or Eshu or something like that. Like Eshu, you just go to the store and get some palm oil and some, what do you call it, dry gin, salt, things like that, right? You could, what I'm saying is those types of icons, even IJ and so many other icons, you can usually just go to the store and get the materials that you need, bring them home, and utilize them in your offering process. With Egungun, you're going to have to cook for them. You're going to have to cook some traditional Yoruba meals if you're working with the Isheshe tradition. I don't know how it goes with Lukumi and Santeria, Palo, and these other traditions, but that's how it is in Yoruba land. So do keep that part in mind as well. Not impossible. I'm pretty sure it's probably easy to learn. I haven't, but you can definitely go through that process as well. Ancestor altars. When you hear ancestor altars, that's a diaspora term. All right, that's a diaspora practice. Usually going to see these in traditions like the hoodoo and the voodoo and things like that, even Gula Geechee, etc. Ancestor altars are devices that you put together on your own. You can put whatever you choose to put on there. Obviously, you want to honor your ancestors with that process. It's a very relevant and legitimate way to honor your ancestors, but this is not something that comes from the Ifa tradition out of Yoruba land. All right, they do not maintain ancestor altars in the way that we do, where we're putting pictures and different items and so forth on that particular device. It is something that I do recommend for those of us in the diaspora, though, especially when you're first beginning to honor your ancestors, because it can help you to establish that connection and that grounding. It serves as a focal point for you, and you can move forward in the tradition. Like for somebody kind of in the interim, or they haven't started yet, they're still learning about Ifa, they're not really ready to go ahead and embrace the tradition full on. An ancestor altar is a beautiful thing to maintain, but just keep in mind that this is not part of the Ifa tradition. Okay, Ifa, you're gonna have a consecrated icon or pot. It has to be consecrated with blood in order for it to be activated. That's how it works. If you have something and it hasn't been activated with blood, you just got an object. You do not have a consecrated Orisha pot or icon in that case, okay? In either practice, the ancestors are honored. We're going to still say the prayers. In the Yoruba culture, you're going to say incantations and things like that unto the ancestors, express your gratitude. You're going to sit with your ancestors, talk to them, things like that, okay? That being said, you don't have to know Yoruba in order to work with an ancestor or an Egungun pot or what have you at a shrine. You don't have to know the language. It's great if you do, but you don't have to. And two, you can still learn like small incantations in the Yoruba language if you choose to do so. The most important thing is to speak with sincerity and to honor them properly. And if you're working with the pot, you definitely want to offer them the things that they accept. You don't want to give them anything taboo. So that's why you want to make sure that you are prepared for that reality if you want to maintain an ancestral pot according to the Ifa tradition. There's no rigid schedule that you have to maintain for honoring your ancestors, though. It's not like you have to go in and, this day and do this and so forth and so on, right? That being said, many people who do choose to maintain that ancestral pot in Yoruba land, like having a shrine to the ancestors, is a common thing. But there's no, particular guidelines on that, but many people do choose to work with that icon at least once a week or something like that. They're going to definitely work with it during the major festival periods, etc., or even so during significant life events. Maybe a new child comes into the world and they're going to go to their ancestor pot and give some offerings and prayers and so forth and so on. So yeah, you are very welcome, and greetings to everybody who is showing up on both platforms. I am so happy to have you guys here. So now I'm going to get into like ancestor readings, rituals according to Ifa. I have talked about this before, but I want to discuss it briefly here. You can definitely get an ancestral reading through the tradition. This is not an Ifa reading, though, right? The difference is when you get an ancestor reading, the diviner goes and talks to your ancestral lineage through a process that they learn. It is not every owl that will know this process, though, so keep that in mind. This is a special type of reading that you have to learn the process to do it. It's a very intricate process, and it can be really, really taxing on a person, even so, to do it, because they're communicating directly with your bloodline. Ifa divination uses specific tools or what have you. So it's a little bit different. And also who you are speaking to. So in Ifa divination, the diviner is talking to Ifa, the oracle, or Romula, right? Whereas in an ancestral reading, they are talking to your specific bloodline, right? To get messages for you. During such a reading, you can ask very specific questions about your lineage. And when I say specific, you have to provide certain details because this is not an intuitive based reading. So it's not like what ancestors are with me. Instead, you can ask what types of you can ask specific names of ancestors. So if you want to know, is Grandma Viola, that's actually my grandmother's name, is she in a good place? You can get a definitive answer to that, but not, or if you can ask, like, is she walking with me or something like that? Definitely you're asking, sorry guys, does Baba have such a skill? Absolutely. We do ancestor readings. We do ancestor readings quite frequently at Asanee 44. So you guys can definitely check us out there with that particular work if you have those questions. And I even outline it really in depth, like how to ask the questions on the checkout form or what have you. But this is how that goes. This is not an intuitive reading. So I know some of you all may be used to like tarot readings and things like that, where they may give you this type of insight. Is it real? Is it relevant? I have no idea. But in the Ifa, when I'm referring to like the tarot readings, are they real when they're coming and saying like, this particular ancestor walks with you? Even then, I have never heard a tarot reader like come and call somebody's specific name. Like usually they'll describe what the person looks like, and like this ancestors with you, they have on this, or they look like this, or what have you. But that's not how it goes according to the Ifa tradition. That's not the type of information that is going to be pulled. Instead, you can ask very specific questions, detailed questions about, is this ancestor with me? Is this ancestor okay? What do my ancestors want me to do right now? What's the best way for me to honor my ancestors? Those types of things you can ask in an ancestor reading. If you guys want more guidance on that, just let me know. But it is great to hear from your ancestors from time to time beyond just doing the Ifa reading, okay? This is another question that I received. Will ancestor veneration or elevation help them to grow spiritually in their new realm? Absolutely, right? So in Ifa, practices such as continual prayers and offerings, and even so burial rites and rituals, connection, elevation rituals, festival activities, all the things that we talked about help our ancestors to evolve. That's why we do what we do. That's why every time you see somebody working with their ancestors, they are helping them to get to the next level in different ways. They're helping to support their ancestors' journey so their ancestors can help to support their journey. All right. And let me say this before I get to this part too. So when somebody first transitions, as I said before, they are automatically, in the culture, in the Ifa tradition, they're going to be given certain rites and rituals for the deceased to help the land accept them, to help them to get to that next level and so forth. And so that's just a normal part of the culture. So if you live there, the Ifa tradition, I'll say it that way, you would go ahead and do those things. And I, qualify that because a lot of people do practice Christianity and Islam and so forth in Yoruba land. So they may not be so inclined to do some of the traditional rites and rituals. But if somebody's practicing Ifa, like that's just the normal part of the process. So getting into an ancestor connection ritual. Ancestor connection ritual, it is a special ceremony that helps to draw your ancestral spirits closer to you. It helps them to be around you more. It helps for you to hear from them more and things like that. You can feel their presence. You can resonate with their vibration, you're going to be able to hear them speaking to you more. And when I say that, I'm not necessarily talking about clairaudience here, though it can happen that way. When I say here, it just may be a knowing, right? A feeling that I just know what to do. You'll find that it happens a lot more. Dreams, things like that will happen a lot more, where you're getting that insight from them. The elevation ritual, on the other hand, this is a very high level ceremony that ensures that, as I said before, the ancestors are going to be accepted by the land. So offerings are given to the Ile to make sure that they're going to be accepted, right? And it can be done before or after a person transitions. So for a lot of us just starting, you're going to do this after the fact, but it still is helpful for your lineage. All right. They're going to, it ensures that the land accepts them, and then also that they can be uplifted, that they can be healed as they go through their journey in the ancestral realm. It helps people who are stuck, those souls that are stuck, those souls that are restless, even so earthbound, things like that, any souls that are burdened and they cannot get to that next level on their own, you're helping them out. Strongly encourage you to do this on a regular basis for your ancestors, okay? These types of rituals can be performed collectively, as I said before, or individually. So for me, the way it looks like in my own practice, I do them at least once a year, but usually I try to get to it several times a year, 3 or 4 times a year, where I am doing the connection ritual for my ancestors. If somebody in my family is about to transition, I know this, right? Or if they just transition, I'm going to go ahead and do that specifically for that person who transitioned, because I know that they need, that certain work being done for them. That's the way I personally do it. But I encourage, anybody, you can do these as much as possible. Also, ancestral elevation, let me say this, it is inclusive of the connection ritual. So if you're doing ancestral elevation, you are also connecting with them. So you don't have to do both rituals at the same time. All righty, so I got a question here. Beside in your dreams, what are some of the other ways the ancestors communicate with us? I am definitely going to get to that. Thank you for that question. I do have that plan. I have to do notes so I can keep myself on track, guys. Otherwise, I would be all over the place because I can easily get off track. So, lineage, inclusion, exceptions. So this is the questions that a lot of you all were asking about, like, what if the people are not in a good place? What do we do for them? And other questions related to connecting with your ancestors. So when your biological lineage is unknown, somebody who is adopted maybe, or it's just some question marks there for whatever reason, you can absolutely still should build a connection with your ancestors, both the known and the unknown. At the end of the day, we're all building relationships or connections with unknown ancestors because nobody knows all of their lineage. Definitely, there are individuals who know more about their lineage and their tribe and their background than others. But even those who have those close connections, nobody knows about those ancient ancestors, right? So you want to go ahead and still do those rituals. That being said, too, if you are adopted or something like that, I recommend definitely still doing ritual work unto the people who adopted you plus your lineage, all right? And it doesn't have to be a separate ritual. You can still do it in one ritual, but I definitely recommend doing it for both sides because those are the people who took care of you. As I said before, somebody can become an ancestor through a surrogate type of connection, an adoption type of connection. Maybe they didn't have children on their own, but they did raise children. And so that can qualify them for ancestral status along with the other qualifiers that I mentioned before. You can begin addressing them collectively, right? And inviting those who walk with wisdom and truth and honor into your space, right? That's how you start the process. You call on the benevolent, the good forces in your lineage, not just any and everybody who died. If you don't know, I do not recommend you just start calling out names individually, even if these are people that you knew and you feel like, oh, grandma was a good person. I know she's good. You don't know. So it is best for you to just call on them collectively if you don't know exactly the situation that they're in, right? And that comes through like a reading or something like that to know exactly how well they're situated in the astral realm. Greetings, my dear. So keep that in mind, definitely. All right. Honor your ancestors from both sides is also very important. So this is a big thing in the diaspora, especially because a lot of people, we just want to focus on the lineage that we knew. A lot of times this happens, unfortunately, with, the mother side because the dad wasn't around. You have to honor both sides because both sides contributed to you being who you are. And you may actually have more traits from the side that you're not connected to. And that may be the side that is actually working with you more. You don't know. So don't make that decision to ignore one side of your lineage just because you didn't know them during their earthly sojourn, right? Or they, some kind of trauma or something like that there. You're saying I tapped in at the right time. I've always had mixed feelings about calling on my grandmother. Okay, great. Yes, I wouldn't until I know that this person is okay because you don't want to invite the wrong energy into your space, right? Each lineage, as I said before, they got their own gifts, their own energies, so forth and so on that contributed to who you are. So duly honor both sides. All right. Even if one side is estranged or less known, putting them two together helps you to achieve better alignment because you want to tap into whatever forces that you can tap into for your betterment during your life on this earth, during your journey here. Okay. Um, Even so, religious practices, because that's another concern. Like, well, my ancestors practiced Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or whatever it was. So should I still honor them through Ifa? Absolutely. Right. We don't leave our ancestors just because of what they practice, because truth be told, it's not about what you practice that's going to get you into the ancestral realm. There are ancestors who practice Christianity, or even some who may have been agnostic as far as you knew. I would even say atheists because we don't know. You don't know until they transition, right? Because an atheist person could have lived a very, very beautiful life, a good life, been a good person, but maybe they just didn't believe in God or what have you. So you don't want to say, I'm not going to deal with these ancestors because they were, worshiping Jesus or what have you. Instead, you want to honor all of your ancestors. My lineage was Christian for the most part. I had my great grandmother, she practiced hoodoo, but still went to church and stuff like that. So she claimed Christianity. And when I started honoring my ancestors and learning about, how are they situated, they were situated well because I was doing the work for them or what have you. And they all helped me. They still help me. And I'm going to even give you all an anecdotal story shortly about a situation with my dad, right? So, you can go ahead and honor them. You should absolutely go ahead and honor them. And my dad, saying that my dad was absolutely, when he transitioned, he was into Christianity. He was heavily into Christianity right before he transitioned. He really, got into Christianity and talking about Jesus all the time. He didn't want to hear anything else but about Jesus. He wasn't like that when I was growing up, but people get older, transition, they get scared or what have you. So yeah. Sometimes we have to elevate our ancestors. Yes, consistently we need to be elevating them. You're saying how to elevate our ancestors. So I did talk about that. I'll mention it briefly, but you can go back in other parts of the live streams. According to Ifa, we elevate our ancestors through sacred rites and rituals, which is inclusive of animal sacrifices and other types of offerings that are accepted by Egungun, the spiritual forces that govern us. That's what we call the ancestors in the tradition. There are other ways that you can elevate your ancestors. I'm not saying that they don't work, but there's like I saw a huge change when I started to do elevation work through the E5 tradition. And I did try some things before E5, but I just saw a huge difference when I transitioned to doing it in the E5 tradition. You said you do not know any family who practice anything other than Christianity. Yeah, pretty much the same for me, aside from my great grandmother that I just told you guys about who did practice hoodoo. Don't neglect your ancestors because of what they practice and you're making assumptions because it's not everybody even that practices Ifa or another African tradition that is automatically going to become an ancestor. There are qualifiers beyond what you believe in or what you practice while you are on this earth. King Nuru, you're saying if elevated, will that open up clearer clairvoyance and other? Absolutely, absolutely. It would definitely open up you. You're gonna hear from them and see them more, and I'm gonna get into that shortly as well as I think aside you asked about that part too, and I am gonna get to it. So ethics, discernment, challenges. Let's cover some of these things. So some people have conflicted concerns when it comes to navigating complex family relationships. All right, this is valid, absolutely valid. Those feelings don't go away just because that person transitioned. I dealt with this deeply after my dad transitioned. He transitioned last year in June, I think it was, right? And I did everything I had to do as far as ensuring that he was received by the land and all this kind of stuff. But we had a very conflicted relationship. It had got much better before he transitioned. A lot of that had to do with me going into the tradition and reconciling a lot of those things in our bloodline. But he did a lot of stuff. And so, I had valid reasons to be angry. And sometimes those feelings would come up after he transitioned. I couldn't do anything about it then because he was gone, but they still left me feeling upset and angry. But this process of doing the elevation work is definitely what helped me, because after I started doing like a lot of work and things like that towards them, I did it for him specifically when he transitioned. A few months ago, actually, too, he came up. It was like probably 2 or 3 weeks before that. I remember being very, very angry with him for something that came to my mind, and I had to just kind of shut it down and deal with all of those emotions because I had nowhere to put that energy. And so, not too long after that, I ended up getting a reading. It was an E5 divination, it wasn't even an ancestor reading, but in the reading, it came back that my dad's spirit was fighting for me because I was dealing with a lot of battles in the spiritual realm, and his spirit was fighting for me. Guys, that changed everything about how I felt about him thereafter, right? So, like, I don't even get mad when those feelings come back. It's not the thoughts, I should say. When those thoughts come back to me, I don't get angry anymore because I know he's fighting for me, and I'm like, okay, I understand it now. He's in a better position. I helped him elevate. Even so, understanding like why he did what he did before he left, I got that because he's a Vietnam vet. He went through a lot of dysfunction in his childhood, so forth and so on. So I understood that from a logistical perspective. However, that doesn't change the dynamic of what you go through when you're growing up. And so I still had to deal with those emotions and that pain and so forth and so on. And as I did, it would come back in waves. But now it's like, even if that comes up, I just get excited because I know he's watching over me. And it in that reading, it just came back specifically that it was my dad's spirit who was fighting for me. And so people were trying some things against me, but they couldn't penetrate me because of him. So you're asking, what about ancestors or family that tried to harm or kill you? Are those considered ancestors? So generally not, right? Unless they did some reconciliation thereafter. I can't say yes or no, just blanket because they tried to do something to you. Because like I said, you don't know where they were when they transitioned spiritually, mentally, emotionally, etc. So what you want to do is check on that. I definitely wouldn't, well, you probably aren't even considering this, but I wouldn't just go and start to worship them, or not worship, but venerate them, right? You're going to have to deal with this on your own, as far as, are you okay with going and doing the work for them to help them to elevate or ascend, or even to check on them. It can help you out a lot. It can help you to reconcile and heal, but you got to get there in your own time. But normally, if somebody was not a good person in this life, they're usually just not going to be an ancestor right off the bat. Ashe, my dear. You're saying, so it showed me that they destroyed the person that protected me. They destroyed the person, or you saying a person who is still living? They destroyed somebody who was living, or they destroyed somebody in the astral realm who is protecting you? I don't understand that part fully. Okay, so they combated that person who was alive. Yeah, people can do that. I mean, forces can do that. So I would say to you, you could check on them, check what you can do to protect yourself against any of, like, any foul or evil spirits, anything that's causing you blockages at all. King of Self, you're saying, in one of my readings, I had others come up, and I know my grandmother had friends she was real close to, and I remember some of the ladies, can they be walking with me? They can absolutely be helping you. Are they walking with you full time? Likely not, because they are probably protecting their ancestor, their lineage more so, but that doesn't mean that they can't come around you and provide you with some blessings, because they can. Okay. So you're saying, yeah, no, I understood. You're saying they're not living, but they were attacking this person when they were alive, and the person who protected you against that person, um, they transition. Yes. So I would check, because that's the best thing to do, because I can't guess, or I wouldn't encourage you to guess as far as where they are. You got to come to a space within yourself if you want to actually work with them and help them to elevate. It's healing for all of us. And again, I'm not the one to tell anybody just go ahead and do something that you're not ready to do, because I wasn't ready to do a lot of the work when it came to my dad either. But I did it because I knew that it would help me, and I was in a different space in my journey when he did transition. So I went ahead and did it, even though it was so much messiness, even so surrounding his death and burial and funeral and all of it. It was so much drama, but I went ahead and did the work. You said you see good. All right. So where was I at, guys? Sorry about it. So harmful ancestors. Okay, I already said that. In some cases, spiritual work may be needed to address those unresolved ancestral, that pain that you're going through, that trauma. And by this, I mean work on you. So I'm not talking about the ancestral elevation work. You may need to do some spiritual work to help you to overcome and resolve that conflict, so that you can move forward. And I know, even though I didn't do specific work against the situation with my dad that I'm telling you guys about, I had been doing a lot of work in the tradition holistically for my own healing and reconciliation in so many different areas of my life. And so that's one of the reasons why I was in that space, so I could just push past the pain and do what I had to do in that moment, to help him to transition properly. Even so, I started his work before he passed because he was very sick, and like he was on hospice, I think, at that point. And so we were anticipating him to transition. And so I went ahead and started doing the offerings for the land at that point. And as soon as we did that work so that the land would accept him, he at the time he was even in a space of dementia. He didn't halfway knew who he was, but he started having dreams about his grandmother. She came to visit him after I did that work, and he knew nothing about me doing that work. And even how I knew that he had that dream was through his wife. So at the time when he transitioned, he was married to his fourth wife, and it was not my mom. And so his wife, she just called me up one day. It's not somebody I talk to regularly, but she just called me up and was telling me like he was having these dreams, and he was talking about he saw his grandmother and so forth and so on. And so we went back in and checked, and it was like, yeah, they were doing the work for him. They was preparing him and getting him ready. And probably about 6 months or so after that is when he actually transitioned. So you're saying here, I have a twin that passed when he was 3, and a reading said that he was still wondering. Absolutely, it can be true. I would check on him. 3 years old, if nobody did the work, he probably is, because at that age, he wouldn't even considered an ancestor because he never lived out his destiny. He never was able to really live and make a lineage and do any of those qualifiers that set him up as an ancestor. So I would definitely do some work for him. Any child that passes, anybody who passes below the age of majority, even shortly thereafter, I would do some work on their behalf. Let's see. So messages can also come through divination. Let me go back. Sorry. Signs, communication, and effectiveness. So this is what you guys were asking about before. How do we know that our ancestors are talking to us? So you can get some messages through divination, obviously, like I talked about before with the ancestral reading, to see what's going on with them. Or you can also get messages from them through unexpected guidance from others. So you might be thinking about something, or you might ask something out loud to your ancestors, and then the next thing you know, somebody else is answering that question. That's your ancestors speaking through that person to you. They're giving you the answer. Communication from ancestor, oftentimes, as I said before, come through the dream state. Your dreams are so important. If you're having different dreams, guys, and you're working with somebody, and you're having vivid dreams, dreams that you remember upon waking, odd dreams, things like that, go and talk to that person and get some type of dream interpretation from them to see if your ancestors are sending you messages that you need to pay attention to. Yeah, they love to show up in my dreams personally. So almost every night, especially lately. I don't know what happened recently, but it's like the last couple of weeks. It's like almost every day. Even not just me, but people in my household. They're having dreams and things like that, and we check on them. And yeah, there's some significant messages coming through from the ancestors with that. Even so, sudden thoughts, all right? Just those intuitive nudges that you get, synchronicities are huge. So you keep seeing like the same numbers. You look at the clock and it's 11, 11, 11, 11. That's probably your ancestors trying to communicate with you. Signs in nature come through animals. So many different ways that they can communicate with you. You're saying, what about one who doesn't dream or doesn't remember dream? I think I have a block. There are different ways to potentiate your dreams. I'm going to say this now. One of the best ways to do so is having a clean system. do some fasting, right? If you can, if your health is in a good space for you to do so, try to do some fasting, even like a 24-hour fast. If you can just only consume water during that time. Um, Even so, a deeper level of cleansing, right? Cleansing out your body. That's going to help you to hear much better from the spiritual realm overall, right? But there are other things that you can do to potentiate your dreams. Journaling helps. Keeping a dream journal next to you, some ritual work and things like that that you can do before you go to sleep. Lighting a candle, that's huge in the voodoo tradition, is that we're going to do the illumination rituals. I'm saying the word wrong, so don't quote me on it, right? I have to find the spelling for you guys. But it's a ritual that you are going to do unto your ancestors. So for those of you all who may be new, I do practice voodoo as well, and Ifa. And so in the voodoo tradition, there are specific rituals that we do to help with dream potentiation in that manner, where we're going to do some candle work and things like that unto our ancestors. It's not just lighting a candle. I get what you're saying, but that particular ritual is a little bit more high level. So, but we can communicate a little bit more about that offline. But there are so many ways to help potentiate your dreams. Alrighty. Greetings, Samantha. Thank you. Greetings, Owl Adissa. Thank you for showing up. Alrighty. So, let me see. Go back to my notes, guys. You say always lighting the way for my Orisha and Egungun. Okay, keeping those candles lit. I got you. And in Ifa candles are not a big part of the ritual work, but I know in some of the other traditions it is. In voodoo, candle work is like, first and foremost. It's something you go do quite often. Let's see. And I mean Isheshe when I say Ifa. So for anybody new, I talk about Isheshe. I'm not talking about the Lucamies and the Santerias, the Palos, and the other derivatives of Ifa. Okay. Let's see, where was I? So going back to it, you may even hear their names. You may just all of a sudden hear their names being called or something like that, or just feel their presence. You just know that they're around you. All right. You're receiving answers rather to questions that you haven't even spoken. You might just be at the thought level and you just think something. The next thing you know, boom, you receive an answer to it, or it manifests in front of you. A lot of times that is ancestral communication, guys. Let's see. So you're asking, what about those who are related to our bloodline through oppression, colonization? How do we address them? They're your ancestors. This is a very good question. Thank you for bringing it up, because a lot of us do have ancestors from very traumatic experience. So we're talking about the slavery and the colonization and things like that. Some of our ancestors, the Black lineage, were forcibly it put in forcible situations. I can't say certain words because we're on YouTube. So some of our ancestors were put in forcible situations where they had children, not because they wanted to, right? You still need to go in and reconcile that, because it affects you. It's going to affect your lineage. It's going to affect your children. And a lot of us in America, African Americans, Black Americans, FBA, ADOS, whatever you want to call yourself, right? So I'm not partial with certain terms I don't care for, but whatever you want to call yourself, if you are in America and you were, your lineage is from here and your ancestral lineage did experience that dynamic, you do want to go back and work those dynamics out, right? Because that's going to impact you. It's definitely going to impact your lineage moving forward. And you need to reconcile those dynamics. It's not going to be easy for the most part, for the average person probably, but it does happen. I mean, it should happen. It needs to happen, rather. How can I speak with you? How can I speak with you? I recently posted about my Shay initiations, but I did, DM me. I guess you're asking me how can you speak with me directly. Just okay, you're asking it again here. I got you. So how do I speak with you? I recently posted about my Shay initiation, but I didn't go into detail. DM me on IG, or either you can email me to at support@asanee44.com. Either method, and we can communicate about that. Okay. I think I remember you as well. I think I remember the communication that we had about the initiation too. Okay, so you're asking me, do I do readings? So we do readings at Asanee 44. We do several types of readings. So absolutely, we have we do Ifa divination if you want that. That comes with Ebo. We also do the ancestor readings. We have a number of different African astrology readings, and we also have spiritual investigation readings. There's also what do you call it, a document, a web page, right, on my website that can help you navigate to which reading is best based on your needs. Because I know I just said a lot of things, so sometimes people can kind of get confused in that loop as to what type of reading should I get. But there is a document on the website, a page on the website that you can look at and see which reading will be best for you. But if you want an ancestor reading, we definitely do that too. It's very important to get those things done. With the EFI reading, do you do the reading? I don't do the EFI reading. So they're done by our Adissa, who is in the call with us, in the live stream with us, rather. He's out of Nigeria. He's a Nigerian-based Babalawo. He does the reading. He does the Evo. I don't touch blood, guys. So no, I do not do Evo, right? But we do the Evo over there. Like we don't expect for you to do it on your own. If you want to, if you're initiated and you know how to do it, absolutely you can do it on your own. But for the most part, we carry out that process for you. What's an African astrology reading? Thank you for asking that question. So it's a combination of looking at your natal chart when you were born, the astrological aspects of that, depending on what type of reading it is. So we do career readings, we do life path readings, we have 2 different love readings there. So depending on what the nature of the reading is, we're looking at your birth chart to get out information for you to help you to navigate that pathway better. And then we include ancestral readings within that. So your ancestors are going to come through and speak directly to that issue, whatever it may be. So the career readings is very helpful there because it can help you to determine what career path is best for you, something like that if you want that. Same thing with love. The life path reading is more comprehensive, and it can help you understand your destiny better and where you should be. And again, the ancestor readings are embedded into all of that because it's going to give you very, very deep level insight. So a number of people have gotten in and they really, really enjoy it. The prices are on the website. I don't want to call prices right now because I can't remember them off of the top of my head, but they are absolutely on the website. Okay. Yes, with the astrology reading, we need to know the time of birth, the place of birth. I'm going to say we ask for that. So if you don't know it, we can still do it. But it's best if you do know it because it can give us precision on the ascendant. If you know about astrology, you probably do, obviously, because you're asking about the time of birth. So yes, it's best to do it that way. Ashe. So yeah, if you guys have any more questions about that, I want to, we can definitely get to that. But I do want to transition back to these notes about like the ancestors. All right. So let's see. Those are some other ways. Now, when your ancestors are neglected, forgotten, disrespected, those types of things, their energy is going to manifest as imbalances in your life. So it's not going to be all flowers and roses and things like that. Even so, when you are connected to them, it's not like everything is all beautiful, because they might come in to give you warnings, and which you want, but obviously a warning can be like a little bit disalarming, because it's like, I don't want to experience this, but then that's what they're trying to do, help you not to experience something that is going to negatively impact you. Okay. But ancestral displeasure can show up in so many different ways in your life. Obstacles, a lot of problems in the home, right? Family members not getting along, things like that. Illnesses without a clear reason, without a clear diagnosis, even sometimes. Just this heaviness that you're feeling, walking around with, things like that. Um, you may have a lot of those unsettling dreams, very disturbing dreams, emotional unrest, just feeling like you're blocked all the time. That can happen as well. Okay. Effective ancestor veneration, right, can help you to get that peace of mind back. It can help you to empower you in every aspect of your life. So this is why you want to venerate your ancestors. This is why you want to elevate your ancestors. Okay. Once you start to do so, you are probably going to notice that you have improved harmony, peace of mind, tranquility, things like that. You can make decisions better. You can also have just a stronger sense of purpose and meaning in your life, even so, grace in your life. Your dreams are going, when you start to venerate your ancestors, you will likely have some very, very vivid dreams, probably frequent dreams, where they're coming and giving you message after message after message, especially right after you do veneration work. That's another thing, too, guys. If you do veneration work, elevation work, I should say, connection work, elevation work, even so, elbow after an EFA reading or something like that, and you start having dreams and things like that, go to your owl, whoever did the reading for you, and tell them about those dreams, because they can be very, very significant. Don't just hold it in and feel like, oh, well, I'm just having a dream. If you start to have a lot of dreams, vivid dreams that you remember after doing ritual work, that's usually spiritual communication, and you need to see what's going on with it. Usually it could be something good, but you just want to see. Okay. No, I won't say usually. I will say it can be something good, right? But normally it is going to be, even if it's like they're showing you that you were in some type of spiritual battle or something like that, and you won, etc. Because that will happen a lot of times after you do ritual work to overcome certain things, right? Even so, subtle shifts such as feeling just a sense of support, that ancestral presence, as I said before, can indicate that your efforts are paying off. You say things go very smoothly in life, great harmony and balance. Absolutely. Once you start to venerate your ancestors, especially, but also other spiritual forces, you're going to see things start to pan out and, you know, smooth out in your life in a much better way. All right. Consistency, sincerity, these are key. These are not one-time things that you do. Nothing that I mentioned, right? The daily prayers, or the prayers, I should say, whether they're daily or not, it's up to you. But I do pray and talk to my ancestors every day. But the consistent prayers, the incantations, the offerings, the sacrifices, you don't have to do those things every day. The connection rituals, the elevation rituals, but these are things that you just continually do to keep them elevated so that you can likewise stay elevated. The purpose and the impact. So this is the last section I want to go over with you guys today. So if you have any lingering questions, feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat on either platform, guys. This process, any type of ancestral veneration practice that we do, it's going to strengthen that connection. It's going to bring us guidance. We're trying to make decisions. It's going to create a sense of rootedness and even so identity, especially with those of you all who, you're searching for that. You want to know who you are, where you came from. Your ancestors can come and show you all of those different dynamics in different ways, not necessarily all at one time, but it can absolutely bring that information to light for you. It promotes balance, generational healing. This is why we do the work. We're healing the entire bloodline. So you're not just, when you elevate your ancestors, when you connect with your ancestors and do all of this ritual work, you are healing your progeny, even so, your children, your offspring. All right. You're healing your bloodline. So this is why we want to continuously engage in these practices. All right. Daily life becomes just more intentional. You know what you're doing. I got purpose, I got meaning now. I'm getting up to do something that makes a difference, even in the most trying times, even when you feel like there's no purpose to life. Your ancestors can give you that proper support to help you feel connected to your lineage and understand why you're here and why you are having this particular journey. They offer us wisdom. Very important, because they lived this experience. They were here before us. And so even sometimes when they can't tell you, maybe they didn't tell you in the life when they were here, even if they were around you, they can still pass along their wisdom in the afterlife in so many different ways. Maybe they didn't have the words to tell you. Maybe they didn't know how to tell you. But once they transition and you help them to reach that elevated status, they'll find a way to get you that knowledge, that wisdom that you need to make your life better. You're saying, can I save this live? So it's on YouTube. I'm on YouTube as well. So you can go to my YouTube channel at Asanee44 and it is there. So yes. Let's see, and it'll also be on Spotify by Wednesday. I think I put it on Spotify. I should be able to get it on Spotify. Let's see, physical and emotional health can benefit from ancestral alignment and protection as well. So it's not just the spiritual part. Your physical health can change. Your ancestors can come and show you what to do for your physical health. They can provide the miraculous healing and things like that. They can help your body to heal, but they can also show you what you need to be doing in order to heal yourself. You said it will be on YouTube after. Yeah, it's actually on YouTube now, really. So if somebody like is just joining YouTube live, they can go to the beginning. So it's on YouTube, and I plan to leave it here, right? So definitely check it out on YouTube. Come back to it. So going back to what I was saying, they can help you to heal. They can point you in the right direction, send you to the right doctor, send you to the right medicine, the herbal remedies, the right priest, what have you, whatever you need for your healing. Financial growth, they can help you with that too. Your ancestors can absolutely help you to make better judgment. They can also help to open up different passageways and doors for you to get better finances, all right? To help you overcome generational patterns that have blocked your financial growth. Your ancestors are very instrumental in your journey. This is why we need to be connected to them. This is why people don't want us connected to them. This is why they're always saying this is demonic and this is all of these different things, while they are connected to their ancestors, but they're telling us not to connect with our ancestors because they know how powerful our ancestors are. But notice the things that they do. And also notice that they don't say anything to other people groups who venerate their ancestors. They go and even so patronize these groups. You go into a Chinese restaurant, a Thai restaurant, pretty much any Asian nation, and you're going to see an ancestor altar somewhere in that establishment, along with probably Buddha or something like that. But they also have ancestors altars up. Look around. A lot of times you can see it in like the upper parts of the ceilings. You'll see their ancestor altar sitting right there, and you're feeding their altar, and they're working with their altar. They're giving their ancestor money. They're doing all of those things, and you see those people groups rising to the top. All right, constantly. We need to start getting back to doing what we do. All right. Going back to what I was saying, relationships can shift for the better when you're working with your ancestors, your familiar relationships and even outside relationships. all of that, more harmony, things of that nature. So, guys, definitely investigate and invest in connecting with your ancestors. Okay. You're asking me how to speak with you. I recently, this is old message. Sorry about that. You said, I noticed that a long time ago. Speak it. Speak it. Yes, absolutely. And I assume you're talking about how other nations absolutely, connect with their ancestors, and they're doing all of these things, but they're telling us not to. And unfortunately, they got a whole lot of Black people brainwashed. You say anything about ancestors and that's devil worship. That's evil. Jesus is the light, the way, what is it? The way, the light, the truth, and so forth and so on. While these same people who are telling you not to do these things, European Christians, Europeanized Christians, things like that from the Western world, they venerate their ancestors. The Asian people groups venerate their ancestors. Guys, pay attention to the world. Indians, they've maintained their traditional practices, Hinduism, for ages. Look at your biggest tech companies in the U.S. Who heads those industries? Indians, right? You got your Amazon, you got these different I can't think of them right now, but most of these really, really big tech companies and things like that, they are headed by Indian nationals, right? Honestly, that's a lot of their spirits, their ancestors working on their behalf because they continuously venerated them and worked with their spiritual forces over time. The Chinese are taking over the world, and they consistently, they had no shame about it. They consistently stayed and rock with their ancestors. We're the only people that don't do that, and we the people group that's the most behind in the world. But yet somebody will, curse you out if you say something about ancestor veneration to them. So yeah, let's go back. Got a few more messages. Yes, all the nail salons, their ancestors are supporting their endeavors. They are. Most of even European establishments, a lot of them, you go to these different hospitals, these big buildings and things like that, they're even dedicated to their ancestors. All right. They're dedicated to them in name. That's a form of ancestor veneration. Okay. They keep their images on the walls and things like that. But they tell us that we can't even utter the name of our ancestors. Our ancestors was evil and so forth. He said, this is crazy. I'm going through something with the mother of my kids right now. So definitely you need to, get back to it. Yeah, absolutely. They sure do. You're saying it's sad. That's why we are on the bottom of the totem pole. Absolutely. Because we still hate ourselves due to colonialism. Absolutely. I rep it to the end. This is our power. This is our birthright. Right. 100%. And the more we get back into doing what we should be doing, the better off we'll be as a people. We need healing in so many ways. And that's where it starts. It doesn't have to be this really big, grandiose gesture. Just each and every one of us starting to connect with our ancestors and our spiritual forces, and we'll see systematic healing. It doesn't have to be collective as we tried to do so many times in the past, because that won't work if we are connected to other people's systems. We come together collectively as Christians. What is that going to do? Right? No, we have to come back collectively in our birthright, in who we are. You're saying the Catholic priests worship Black Madonna 100%. Thank you for pointing that out. They absolutely do, and this is what people don't understand. They worship the Black Messiah and Black Madonna and all of that. So yes, our ancestors influence us. They help us to respond to those life challenges. They are still part of us. Even the European tells you that. What does he say in your DNA? He's checking your DNA. Why? Because those chromosomes and all of that. That's the scientific way of explaining. We've known this for ages without digging into any blood or any of that type of stuff. We knew that we were the return of our ancestors. We carry their DNA. That's how science says it. Whatever way you want to say it, doesn't really matter. You are your ancestors' return, so you need to honor that. For you to deny that or talk bad about your ancestors, you're cutting yourself off from your lineage, right? You are really killing your bloodline by doing those types of things. But, we don't know what we don't know. I guess that's the case. So, guys, if anything that I've said in this live stream, especially about the Ifa-based ancestral veneration practices, or even other aspects of the tradition, because we are a full-service Ifa temple based out of Nigeria, resonated with you, visit us, asanee44.com. There you will find a lot of our products and offerings that we have open, available to the public. We do pretty much anything in the tradition, as I said before. So if you need something that's not on there, reach out to me, DM me at Asanee44, or you can email me support@asanee44.com. The next live stream that I plan to do in about 2 weeks, guys, we're going to dig into Ifa teachings about sin, evil, hell, the devil, Satan, all of those different things, because you guys have been asking about that. So I am going to go ahead and transition out now, and I will see you all the next time. As always, thank you guys for coming. Ashe. Please have a very blessed and beautiful day and beyond.